Nearly a year ago, I recreated a harpoon based on archaeological finds from the Groswater Complex, a culture which thrived along the coasts of Newfoundland, Labrador, and the Quebec shore around 3,000 years ago. Besides the harpoon blades, they also fashioned a number of other tools from flint and chert, which includes knife blades. In this video, I make a replica of what one of these Groswater Archaeological Complex knives may have looked like when it was newly made. The first step in my reproduction is to make a handle. I already have some wood left over from a previous project and decided to split it until I got a flat piece about the thickness of the handle I wanted. While it might seem counterintuitive to make a knife handle before the blade, there is a specific reason for this. Chert blades often wear out faster than modern steel blades, meaning making new blades would have been a regular activity for prehistoric flint knappers. A good handle also takes more time and effort to create than a stone blade. Rather than creating a new handle with each new flint blade, it makes more sense to shape blades to fit an existing handle. To shape the piece of wood, I start with using a flint adze to chop with. An adze is a woodworking tool similar to an axe, but has a horizontal cutting edge rather than a vertical one. This edge orientation makes the tool easier to control when doing a woodworking project like this one. The Groswater Archaeological Complex is a Paleoarctic culture which existed in Labrador, Newfoundland, and the Quebec lower North Shore, and dates from roughly 3,200 to 1,800 years before present. They made distinctive harpoon end blades which had a plano-convex cross-section and side notches, which were hafted onto an intricate toggling harpoon used to hunt seals and walrus. Groswater archaeological sites produce other stone artifacts such as scrapers, beer ends, microblades, and of course bifacial knife blades. These knives, like the one that I'm making, have side notches and are usually asymmetrical, which has led archaeologists to term them as asymmetric knives. Groswater people would have had a much larger variety of objects from organic materials, such as bone and wood, although these types of artifacts don't preserve as well as stone ones. Some examples of these artifacts have been recovered, including one known example of a harpoon shaft. After shaping the wood handle with my adze, I refine the shape and make it smooth with a flint scraper. I'm leaving the handle attached to the longer piece of wood so that I can hold it more securely while I carve it to shape. I'm leaving the handle fairly long for this particular knife replica. Preserved examples of hafted knives in prehistory range from fairly short to fairly long, although there isn't a Groswater artifact that I'm basing this handle off of. Potential advantages of a handle this length could include longer reach, making the knife easier to hold with something like gloves or mittens on, and making the knife as a whole harder to lose in the snow or brush. With the majority of the shaping done, I saw through where the handle is joined through the wood, then snap it off. Now I can begin sawing a notch where the blade will be affixed to the handle. Knives like the one that I'm making would have been a fairly multifunctional tool for Groswater people. Butchering and processing game animals would have been a critical function of these tools. The subarctic environment that these people lived in meant that animal resources would have been more abundant and more important than plant food resources for food, in comparison to cultures in more temperate climates. These knives would have also been useful for sawing bone and wood, as well as a host of other cutting tasks. Flint-knapped bifacial stone knives have a serrated cutting edge, which is different than the smooth cutting edge of a steel knife. While this makes tasks like whittling and carving with this flint knife ineffective, they perform really well with a cutting or sawing motion. Other flint tools, like simple flake tools, are much better suited for whittling than a hafted bifacial knife. With the notch in the wooden handle mostly cut to depth, I can begin making the stone blade. I start with a large flake of Georgetown chert from Texas, and begin removing flakes around the edge, which will set up later removals of large flakes. These flake removals after this initial step are large and help me thin the piece down, as well as to shape it. As I progress, these flake removals become more controlled but also thinner as the bifacial blade loses mass. Groswater flint knife blades are often known as asymmetrical knives due to their lopsided appearance. This lack of symmetry might be the result of two different factors in my opinion. Rather than losing size and edge length in order to make the blade even, it was left lopsided during manufacture to maximize the amount of edge the tool has for future resharpenings. Resharpening the blades would also result in asymmetry if the flint knapper only resharpened the dull portions of the blade rather than the whole edge. Groswater knife blades were attached to the handle near the base of the blade using either side notches or a stem. These are where the wrappings of sinew or other fine cord pass through the blade as it is tied to the handle. As I continue flint knapping the chirp blade, I'm paying attention to two other design factors besides the outline. First is the edge. I want my blade to have an edge that is smooth and regular, as well as being very acute, which all serve to make it sharp. Second is the base. Having the blade be thin, particularly at the base, means less work spent cutting the notch into the handle, as I will have to remove less material to accommodate a thin blade rather than a thick one. After I'm done using percussion flaking with an antler billet, I switch to mostly using a smaller tool called a pressure flaker to remove smaller, finer flakes to shape the blade. After this, it is time to notch the blade. I use a thin, flat rib bone to flake out the notches so that the blade can be hafted. The notches don't have to be any deeper into the flint than the width of the handle where the two pieces will be joined. After this process is complete, I use pressure flaking to do any final shaping and make the edge sharp with tiny serrations. After some further adjustments to the notch and the handle, I do some final shaping of the wood before I haft the blade. I cut a slight groove in line with the blade's notches, which will help guide and secure the lashings. This part is optional, but it is a design element I really like. The blade and the handle notch are coated in pine pitch glue, and the blade is slid into place. While the glue is still soft, I can adjust the blade and fill any gaps between the two with pine pitch. I then take sinew fibers which have been soaked in water and twisted together into a single plied cord, which I then wrap around the blade and the handle. As the sinew dries, it will shrink and tighten in place. Once that has had time to dry, I thinly coat the hafting area in pitch to keep the lashings waterproof. And with that, this Groswater knife replica is complete, and now a fully functional tool for use.